Excuse me. Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 404. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, per usual, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and Ian Scarber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, we're coming at you. We're coming at you hotter than the Spurs draft pick.
Yeah. I just found out that the winners of tonight's NBA lottery, they get the number one draft pick, and that I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name. That hot shot player from Greece, the 7'5" kid who looks like a bigger version of a bigger, taller version of Kevin Durant. Yeah, like they're gonna get him and Popovich. Let's just say is a like all likelihood he's gonna hang on and coach for a few more years. But anyway, welcome to episode 404 Pound for Pound Box Report. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, this is a live YouTube show, blog, podcast, site, etc., discussing all things boxing. And the motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we'll talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science in any way, it will get discussed. You want to find out any and all information about Pound for Pound Box Report. The site is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.com. If you wish to email us with any questions, uh, comments, suggestions, etc., you can do so p4p boxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, if you do a quick navigation search on the screen, the opening page at least, you'll find links to where to check out the podcast on any all platforms where you listen to your favorite podcast, be it Anchor, be it Spotify, be it Google Podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also, links to where you can find the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, IG, Tumblr page. If you wish to donate, got Cash Me, PayPal donation links. Wouldn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5, $10. It will really help us in terms of production wise behind the scenes. If you're checking us out on Facebook, please make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It'll help with the overall algorithms of the show, get us closer to being monetized. And last but certainly not least, if you're looking to get your body right for the summer, summer's officially a little over a month away. Please check out BODI, aka Beachbody on Demand, programs for any and all suitable interests, fitness goals. If you're looking just to lift weights and bodybuilding style, bodybuilding / hit style workouts, I suggest you check out Lift 4 and Lift More. If you're looking to really challenge yourself with hard functional based workouts, I suggest you check out programs like 645, 6 weeks of the work, the P90X series, 1, 2, and 3, particularly 2 and 3. They're very, very solid. They're still applicable. So are the Insanity Asylum series. If you're looking to for a program that a morning based program, I suggest you check out Morning Meltdown. Also programs like Fire and Flow, Muscle Burns Fat, PIO. They even have a couple of yoga and Pilates based workouts as well. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, I suggest you check out 10 Rounds, a 6-week program, 5 days of work, 5 workouts per week, 3 days of boxing based cardio, 2 days of weightlifting. Or at the very least, check out the 2-week trial for 14 days. You get free access to any and all programs on BODI, aka Beachbody. Let's get things going by recapping the fights that took place this weekend. And let's start in Stockton, California, right? We've talked about Janibek Alimkhanuly plenty here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Reigning WBO middleweight champion. The perception among hardcore heads is that Alimkhanuly, aka Kazakh style, viewed as the boogeyman of the middleweight division. But in his first defense of the title against Denzel Bentley in November 2020, he won, but his performance was like, pretty mid, right? And he was even disappointed with his how he fought. Well, second defense took place against Stephen Butler. Some people may remember Stephen Butler um, in a fifth round TKO loss to then WBA champ Royota Murata, excuse me, and stepped in the ring against Alimkhanuly. And yeah, Gail, you talk about easy work. You talk about barely breaking a sweat. That was the case here as Alimkhanuly got to Butler early, hurt him, blitzed through him, and took him out in round two. Uh, he was looking to impress, right? Looking to make a statement. He certainly did that. And afterwards, he wants all the smoke at 168 pounds. He's called out. He called out Charlo. He said he wants Canelo. He's willing to fight Canelo at 168. He said that during the lead up, he said that Canelo would be, in his words, quote unquote, easy work. Your take about Alimkhanuly, how he performed, um, what he had to say afterwards, and who knew he knew so much English?
It's amazing. The Eastern European fighters over and over impress us by how quickly they learn English, and they get it. They need to communicate with American fight fans, and they are much more approachable when they learn English. And their model in this is one Kazakh named Gennady Golovkin, who endeared himself to, of all things, Southern California's Latino fan base by learning not just English, but taking advantage of his aggressive style. So, a lot of the fighters have emulated that aggressive style of learning English, and Alimkhanuly did most of his post-fight interview in English, and it wasn't like he was winded or anything. Two short rounds, and Stephen Butler was gone. Alimkhanuly had a real draggy fight a year ago, or 7, 8 months ago, against Denzel Bentley. Now, he dominated the fight, although some of the cards weren't that wide, 116, 112 cards, and a 118, 110 for Steve Weisfeld, which really was the right one. But, not exactly the performance of a giant killer, which his team and Top Rank had been selling him, as the next big power puncher in the middleweight division. And let's face it, the middleweight division, which has had some of the most exciting fighters in history, that perfect intersection between the speed of the smaller weight divisions and the power of the bigger men, man, it has fallen on some hard times. Golovkin is all but retired. Canelo has moved up to super middleweight and maybe even light heavyweight. Jamal Charlo is MIA, basically. The rest of the division is sort of, chewing up the scraps. You have guys like Demetrius Andrade, who again has sort of been MIA, and he's also moved up to super middleweight. So there are a lot of hopes pinned on Alimkhanuly to resurrect the middleweight division. He really needed this performance. Butler is serviceable, but not dangerous. Didn't have a particularly high, he had a decent knockout rate, but not particularly against high-ranked opposition. If you go back through and look at his record, Murata is arguably the best opponent on his record, and he lost to him in fifth round knockout TKO. So what we saw from Janibek Alimkhanuly on Saturday was exactly what he needed to do. Very, very impressive. 3 knockdowns, brutal body shots, brutal left hooks. And because it's a title fight, for a world championship, a referee is going to give the fighter every opportunity to compete, especially when you're only in the second round. But Jack Reese took a little heat for letting him get knocked down 3 times, with the third looking pretty nasty. Nevertheless, we've got an actual live dog in the middleweight division. The problem is, who's there for him to fight? He called out Canelo and he called out Charlo. Well, Canelo doesn't fight at middleweight. So, not sure what he was thinking about there. Canelo was not coming back down to 160. Charlo, here's talk of him moving up to 168. So he's going to have to look around for some more opponents. And there are going to be promoter firewalls, but I think there is a very good fight possible for him if Jaime Munguia beats Sergey Derevyanchenko here in a couple of weeks. Let's see Kazakh style versus Mexican style for everything at 160.
Here's the problem, Daniel. Munguia has been #1 contender by the WBO. There's been a window in which he could have fought this dude, in which he can still fight him. Where is the initiative being pushed by the fighter and by Golden Boy? I have yet to see it. I have yet to see Munguia say, I want Janibek. I have yet to see anybody from Golden Boy saying we are moving him in the direction of a fight with Alimkhanuly. And there's the rub, right? Alimkhanuly, he wants these big fights and he's eager to get in the ring with the best of the best at 160 and 168. The question is, will he ever secure that big fight, right? The reality is, while he's known to hardcore heads and he's looked at as a real, he is viewed as a real talent, it's not like he's a box office draw, right? It's not like he has that it star factor that will attract the masses outside of boxing geeks and nerds like us. All right, you have to be able to. This is money matters, right? Cash matters. Who you can pull in at the live gate and those watching on the screens matters. And what can he and what can Top Rank, his promoter, do specifically to put him in, to put Alimkhanuly in position to get the big fights that he wants?
You gotta
And in
actually,
addition, excuse me, will these other big name guys at 160 and 168 will they be willing to bite, snatch the bait?
if you're gonna stick to 160, you have to believe the sanctioning bodies. It's the main way to do it because the situation of Munguia, like I said, to me that's more on Zanford than it is Golden Boy. Zanford has had a good reputation of overprotecting their fighters. So that's probably more on them because I think they're still his primary promoter. But the next fight with Lomachenko is going to be an interesting test. I would probably go with the WBC route because Maul has not defended that belt for over 700 days. And say what you want about him trying to make it into, that's a long time. That's almost Leo Santa Cruz long time of not defending the belt. So I would probably lean on more towards the WBC, try to make unification or try to order the fight between Janibek and somebody else to get that vacant WBC title. The problem, unfortunately, is also sanctioning bodies usually don't like to work with each other unless it makes sense for them financially. And that's where the rub is, unfortunately, because Janibek, even though that performance was exactly what he needed to do, blitz Butler, hit him with uppercuts, and just finish him. Don't play with your food. The problem, unfortunately, is he has a little bit of it's pretty much poetic in a way because he has the Gennady Golovkin problem, early Gennady Golovkin problem, where you can get the knockouts, but few people know who you are. Now, luckily, Janibek has somewhat the benefit of not having to be stuck in another contract like Golovkin was for 3 years, waiting for one particular fight that he was never going to get before coming stateside. He's already here. And like I mentioned, he spoke English, he spoke it fairly well. So he's already getting acclimated to the American market. So it just mainly has to be on Top Rank who, if they believe in you, Top Rank legitimately believes in you, they're going to fight for you. So it should be on them to lean into the conversation bodies because I, as far as I know, think because Golovkin dropped the belt, the IBF is vacant. WBA, we know they put the belt on Laura, PBC, and obviously we mentioned WBC with Maul, still PBC. So whether, especially leaning into them, whether Bob likes it or not, if he really wants on Janibek to actually get the limelight, get a good spot, he's gonna have to pull that Rolodex, and he's gonna have to dial out Heyman's phone in order to make it happen.
I have to agree. I don't see any other way. Um, um, if the goal is to make Janibek the man, um, make him a mainstream attraction at 160 pounds or 168 pounds moving forward. I want to read a couple of comments here from Larry Liston. I appreciate you checking us out live again. Um, for those who are checking us out on YouTube, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. He says here in the current conversation, he says Munguia went from world champion to prospect status. Status means something rarely seen in boxing. I guess Andrade is comparable. He also says that Oscar is already trying to cash out Munguia against Canelo. Oscar is going to cash out all of his guys. Shows how little belief he has in his roster. Golden Boy is done. Um, yeah. Um, it's going to be interesting what uh, Top Rank has in store for Alimkhanuly moving forward. The fighter himself, Kazakhstan, all he can do is just continue to be as active as he can, continue to win, continue to be as impressive as he can against whoever he's in the ring with. In terms of securing the big fights, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough at this moment. This is where the real work has to be done by all parties, the fighter and the promoter, and the public, right? The public has a role in demanding that they put him, that demanding that he get in the ring with someone, putting pressure on these other fighters and these promoters to make these matchups happen. Let's hope it does. Kazakhstan has the talent to compete with anyone in 160 and 168. Let's hope that he gets that opportunity within the next few years, right? Let's move on to the undercard here. I go to you, Daniel. On the undercard, Alimkhanuly and Butler, you had Jason Moloney, right? Long time top half guy at 118 pounds. Most people remember him for his stoppage, for getting stopped by Naoya Inoue on Halloween. I think it was 2020 that fight took place. His third opportunity to fight for a world title against Astrolabio, fighting for the vacant IBF belt. That title, of course, was vacated by Inoue, who decided to vacate, who was undisputed champion, decided to vacate all the belts. He's going to fight Stephen Fulton later on this summer. I'm not going to say this was an exciting fight, Daniel, because it wasn't. It was a case where Moloney did what he had to do to get the victory. The best aspect of his performance, in my opinion, was the jab. He kept Astrolabio pretty much at bay. Didn't take too many chances, but he didn't need to. Workmanlike performance overall, and a win is a win. He's going to be happy because he's finally a world champion. Your assessment of the fight. I'm trying to find a way to try to describe this as exciting as possible because it really was not an exciting fight. But yeah, in the end, I'll repeat, Moloney, he did what he had to do.
It was a fight that wasn't aesthetically pleasing. It's not going to catch a casual's eye, but it's a fight you can appreciate the work that Moloney did in order to try to get to it. Because, like you mentioned, this is his third opportunity to get him to a title. He's come up short twice before. Obviously, you can never take anything bad when it comes to losing it anyway. He's not no anyway. He's a monster. But he did enough. This was like more of a workman's type of fight where, like I said, it's more a little bit technical skill, more the nuances. And Moloney was able to do enough to get to the finish line, which is one of my main worries, unfortunately, when it came to the Moloney brothers is if they faced adversity, did they give up? Did they just stop short of it and then not fulfill the potential? Luckily, in this case, the answer is no. He actually crossed the finish line. And like I mentioned, like Janibek, mentioned with Janibek, the top rank believes in the Moloney brothers. There's a reason why they kept them stateside for so long when we were still fighting in bubbles. So they have plans for him. It's an open field when it comes to bantamweight, thanks to anyway vacating. So there's a lot of things that can be done. And for Australia, that's going to be interesting because you have a legitimate chance of having a fight card with Moloney and Tim Tszyu being co-main events as world champions.
I'll go to you, yeah, and I'll read a comment here from Larry. He says Moloney is a great fighter. He basically said he broke his hand in the third round and he still won the title. His brother is also fighting for a title later this week. That is true. And we will talk about his brother, Andrew Moloney, who's going to fight for the vacant WBO junior bantamweight title on the undercard of Haney Lomachenko. I pushed back against using the word great. Just a personal pet peeve of mine, whether it's in boxing or just in sports in general, the word great is often overused and applied in a lazy manner. Um, that word has weight and gravitas, right? Or it should, and it should only apply to certain fighters. The guy that Inoue, I will put him in the category of a great fighter. Um, I will put Bud Crawford, no matter how you feel about him, I will put him in the category of a great fighter. Um, Bival, borderline great fighter, up there. There are a couple of others you can put in that category. Usyk, Fury, at heavyweight. So that's rarefied air to me. That's why I push back against the word, but I concede the rest of your point. I go to you, Gail. Quick analysis here on Moloney's win over Astrolabio, and he's finally a world champ.
As was said earlier, Moloney had to put the work in, had to learn from his defeats, kept at it, kept training. His work ethic is exceptional. Here was his third shot at a title. Third time was the charm. Some guys just have to grind it out. Their road to getting that strap is not easy. But boy, do they relish it when they do get it. And Moloney certainly falls in that category. I was not aware until well after the fight had concluded that he had broken his hand early in the fight. That impresses me tremendously that he carried on. He never let on. Nobody seemed to get an inkling, not his opponent, not the other corner, not the commentators, certainly not those of us watching, until it was after all was said and done. Frequently in a fight, when Tank messed up his hand, we could tell there was a problem. And Moloney, we just couldn't. Covering it like that, that's an impressive skill. A wounded animal that won't let on that they're hurt to protect themselves. That's exactly what he did. The nice thing for Top Rank is, dealing with the Moloneys, they have a massive, massive fan base in Australia. So they can keep these guys as champions on their roster, keep themselves some options in the lower weight divisions. And while they aren't going to be big money making headliners necessarily in the US, they weren't because they're in the lower weight divisions. But They're wonderful support here in the US on any card. And in Australia, those guys are money-making machines. Between them, Tim Zhu, you can fill big venues in Australia for boxing. Sports fans in Australia tend to be passionate about every sport in which they're competitive. So they are of value. They're of a lot of value to Top Rank, which has interest in getting toeholds all around the world, not just in the United States. Good win for him. The Maloneys are two of the good guys in boxing, too. Never a whiff of scandal. They seem to be decent. They spend a lot of time with fans. They work hard. They're not high maintenance. It's just a lot good to be said about both of them. So very pleased to see Moloney earning that title finally.
One more comment from Larry. He says he's not pound for pound, but it's a good little fighter, and I honestly think he would beat Donaire as well. Don't know about that.
I don't know. Donito is a beast.
Just because Donaire got blitzed by Inoue last time out. Look, the old man, he still got a lot left, right?
Donaire is a freak of nature. He just is. And he stood up against Inoue, especially in the first fight, far better than Moloney. The second one, not so great, but he, especially given his age and how many wars he's been in, it's amazing how much he's got left in the tank. The Donaires, both Rachel and Nonito, were ringside for Jean-Riel Casamaro's fight in the Philippines. They've been working with him. It was interesting to hear them doing commentary on the broadcast that Fight TV was covering from Manila. So, he's talking about being in training, and I'm sure we'll see him in the ring again soon.
And excuse me. Let's just say, since you mentioned him, let's just throw it out there. Moloney, the first title defense against Donaire in Australia. We will see how he truly ranks in the bantamweight division. If he's worth the grain of salt at this point, if he's as good as you say he is, Larry, let's see if that fight can happen, because I think that they could pull Donaire over there. Donaire, he wants another world title at 118. I believe he's willing to do it. Let's see if they can make that matchup. Let's see if they can make that matchup. That would be a good fight. Good attraction for the Moloney brothers. It'll be a big draw over there. I would love to see it. What is it, May? I wouldn't mind that fight happening, say August, September, sometime in the land down under. Good matchup.
Oh, you're going to have Tim Zhu fighting here fairly soon. I don't think Moloney will be ready for a fight too quickly, though, because of the broken hand is going to be the problem. So if Donaire intends to have a fight, it's not going to be Moloney. And at age 40, he doesn't want to really spin his wheels on stay busy fights. Every fight for Donaire at this point needs to count. But, bantamweight is interesting. Once you get past Inoue at the top of the food chain, and, his upcoming fight with Stephen Butler, which, boxing nerds are just going nuts over that whole thing. You get down to Donaire, Moloney, you've got Emmanuel Rodriguez, still up there in the mix. Takuma Inoue fought on the Casamaro undercard to a draw. That was kind of disappointing. I don't know what the heck happened there. And beyond that, of all things, still in the top 10, still lurking around, one Guillermo Rigondeaux, who apparently is now on the Broner undercard in Florida. I don't even know how to follow that up. I have nothing clever to say.
I got nothing. I got nothing. I got nothing. That it
We
is what it is. That's a
that
fact.
yeah,
Let's
that
move
whole
on.
card is just, uh, what can we say? I have had discussions with the, A-side fighter in the co-main event, light heavyweight Ahmed El-Bialy, and I've said to Ahmed more than once, "Son, you need to be prepared to be in the main event." I'm just saying. You got Broner in the main event and you're the co-main, you better be prepared to step it up.
Exactly, exactly. And let's move from that card to Las Vegas, specifically um the return of Romero, right? We remember him getting stopped by Tank Davis last year, June. Moved up to 140, fight Ismael Barroso, and because Puello, his issues testing positive for a PED, he's now WBA recess champion in waiting. Yeah, and Romero and Barroso, as a result, fought for the WBA belt at 140 pounds. And two words to kind of describe, depict, to define this fight: Tony Weeks. In terms of the action itself, Barroso was getting to Romero early, put him down. I think I want to say round three. Um, Romero was strangely passive, Daniel and Gale. I didn't see the aggression that he showed in his fight with Tank. He seemed reserved. He admitted after the fight that the shots of the 41-year-old Barroso, excuse me, he was feeling the shots, but he eventually was able to land with his own power and hurt him. I believe it was round nine, and technically scored a quote unquote knockdown. Replays showed it really wasn't much of a knockdown, more of a push down. But as Barroso got up and Romero went on attack, um, was he able to land with a couple of shots on Barroso? Yeah, a couple, and I mean literally a couple. But strange that Weeks just stepped in and decided to stop the fight. Um, the crowd raised holy hell, and justifiably so. The announced team over at Showtime, they was dumbfounded with Weeks' decision. And the thing about it for me is that not only was Barroso got screwed because I felt he was more than okay to continue on, but Rolly was robbed of scoring a definitive victory. Just bad all around. Um, Tony Weeks is usually a competent referee, well regarded referee, but this decision here uh, marred this fight, and the conversation continues on. It's like all the work and investment that he put in Weeks throughout his career almost got destroyed in one night, in just a few seconds here, with him deciding to unfairly stop this fight.
Oh, where do I begin with this? First of all, this is Rolly we're talking about. Is that unfortunately, even though he didn't show a lot of skill, he's an entertainer. He's an entertaining fighter. So he does grab a little bit of attention. That didn't matter in this fight. He was getting hit. He got knocked down because, but also in the third round, and it was flush. And Rody did not have any much control into that fight until that sequence. In fact, in all three scorecards, if I remember correctly, he was down at least 2 or 3 points on each of them. And if you watch that final sequence, you cannot help but get infuriated because the first quote unquote knockdown that was blatant push, and then the second one, I don't even think he landed anything clean to the head. He landed things to the shoulder. And that's the punch that I guess that Isabel just his feet just got tangled a little bit. And that's where made Weeks jump in. Now, the bad part about it is the onus is not going to be on the fact that Rowley didn't show much variance or much improvement from the tank fight. It didn't show, unfortunately, that for a 41-year-old man, that man was executing fairly well in all aspects. We're talking about Tony Weeks. The same Tony Weeks that refereed, arguably, I think amongst the three of us, the greatest fight we probably will ever see, either on cable or live, in at least in this generation. And Corrales Castillo won. This is the same also Tony Weeks that let Badu Jack fight on while being a Crimson Mask, where it got to the point where Tony Weeks' own referee shirt was no longer blue, it was purple. We know how much blood he had.
Excuse me.
It's just I retweeted Teddy Atlas. Do you know how badly you have to? Yeah, do you know how badly you had to fuck up for me to retweet Teddy Atlas? That's how bad of a decision this was. Nobody was happy. The crowd wasn't happy. None of the announcers were happy. Hell, Steven Espinosa had to say it multiple times that he felt it was a bad stoppage. Nobody is happy about this. If Gilberto Mendoza had some sense, he would strip Rolly of the belt, either demand a rematch or demand that the Nevada State Athletic Commission move this to a no contest. And keep in mind, like Jim Gray tried to interview Tony Weeks in the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They ran for the hills. It just leaves a bad taste in the mouth, unfortunately, because for Barroso, you're 41 years old. This is probably your last chance to get a title. You were close, very, very close, and they got stolen from you. Literally stolen from you.
And who also was not happy with the stoppage, Gail Rowley, who admitted in the post-fight interview in the ring that he felt that the fight should have continued on. Just an all-around bad night from Weeks, and I'll read some from comments here. From Larry, says, when you're rating a fighter, never look at how old his face looks, but the shape of the body but the shape his body was in. Barroso was in great shape. He also says that the reason why it was so important that Rolly won that fight from a PBC perspective is because Barroso wasn't with the PBC. They couldn't let that belt leave the PBC, so they stopped it way too early. I don't know about that, but the bottom line is, yeah, that stoppage, it wasn't right. It wasn't right. Let there be a conclusion to the action, and that wasn't afforded for either guy.
No, it wasn't. It was a really unfortunate conclusion to that fight. Romero was behind on 2 cards and was even on the 3rd at the time of the stoppage. So the judges agreed that at that point, Barroso was in the driver's seat. And at that age, that really was his last best chance in theory. Now, there is precedent in several cases where, to our shock, the commissions have done the right thing. Murata and Dam comes to mind where the fight was immediately ordered as a rematch due to similar problems. Why in the world replay wasn't used, I get it. The fight was stopped. It wasn't between rounds, but I would have still liked some kind of look at replay. The Nevada State Athletic Commission does owe an explanation. They are a public government, state level government organization, and they are accountable to the voters, to the people. And that's where their funding comes from. It's not unusual that Weeks himself didn't speak. Generally, when there's a dust up with either judges or referees or even questions about, say, a ringside position, anybody hired by the commission is the one to speak. It is almost never the referee or the judge. So I wouldn't put a huge amount of store in that. Weeks is going to defer to the commission. That's who signs his paycheck. That's who hires him. What I'm disturbed about is that every single observer's immediate default is payoff, corruption, books are cooked, WWE. You know what? Sometimes even an experienced person at their job screws up. Have none of you ever screwed something up at work, made a hellacious mistake in the moment? Unfortunately for Tony Weeks, unlike him, most of our mistakes are not made live on national television with a sports championship in the balance. He clearly was out of position when he made the call. Looking at the replay from the correct angle, Romero hit Barroso, but then he swung at him and swung wide. But Barroso was off balance. From Weeks' position, not being able to see whether the punch in fact landed or not, it was a winging shot, and Romero was sort of throwing these wild shots all night. From Weeks' perspective, it is possible he thought that second punch landed and he fell down due to the punch versus that he was just backpedaling after the first shot and just lost his balance and fell down all by his damn self. As I've thought more about it in the last couple of days, something else has occurred to me. In the lead up to the fight, we saw nothing but memes and razzing and insults and people saying this dude is old. He looks like a grandpa. He shouldn't be in there. This is ridiculous. There's no way he's 40 years old, blah, blah, blah. That we heard nothing about Barroso other than he's an old man. He shouldn't be in there, right? That's what every fan said, memes galore. I saw so much doctor laughing it up about how Barroso was an old man. It is entirely possible, whether he realizes it or not, or could articulate it or not, that Weeks heard some of that. Their judges are not unaware what all of us are chattering about on Twitter, boxing Twitter, and social media, what boxing media and boxing video jockeys and YouTube channels are talking about. We get it. He's old. He's really old, was the whole narrative. There is a possibility in my mind that Weeks internalized this guy is older, therefore vulnerable, and I'm going to put him on a very, very short leash in this fight so he doesn't get hurt because he's old and he gets hit hard. It's not like a 23-year-old getting hit hard, right? And that he was going to yank him the second he thought he was in trouble. I see that as much more realistic and plausible versus, Weeks took some big payoff in an alley to do this because that's the way the narrative needed to go, and he picked that moment. I think it's a combination of out of position, very bad decision. Everybody, no matter how expert they are at their job, screws it up from time to time. And, when all of us are out there yucking it up saying, well, he's an old man, how much of that should we take on our own shoulders? The guy was willing to get in the ring. Larry is right. He was in phenomenal shape. He was in phenomenal condition, especially you want to consider his age. Damn. Yeah, it looks like he's never ever used a ounce of sunscreen in his entire life. But other than that, he was in there to compete and he was competitive.
He
And
looked like a raisin.
he did. He did. He did. And that fueled a lot of the laughing and insults and all that stuff. But, you know, I wonder how much our irresponsible comments had to do with this. I really do.
Yeah, and after the fight, Rolly said he wanted a match with Ryan Garcia, who's of course coming off of a loss to Javante Tank Davis almost a month ago. Um, will it? Actually, that's a decent fight. I don't know if it'll happen immediately, but if Ryan indeed intends on moving up to 140 pounds permanently, I can see and get a couple of wins to restore some confidence in himself and in the public. Yeah, I can see that fight being made. It's a pay-per-view fight. If time is taken to develop, if both guys continue to win, and both of them are popular, whether you like them or not. So that's a possibility. Let's just say uh, at some point in 2024. Uh, During the show, you mentioned uh, um, Casemiro, right? The former champion at 118 pounds. He did fight over this past weekend, last week on Friday, I believe. I forgot to put it in the docket, but I'm going to give you, Gail or Daniel, whoever saw the fight, to give a quick rundown on his performance because he did win over an African fighter, right?
He did indeed. Casemiro had some kind of a a bit of a homecoming fight. He fought in Manila. It was broadcast on Fight TV, although you had to stay up pretty darn late on Friday or early morning Saturday in the U.S., Saturday afternoon in the Philippines to watch. Um, and none of us knew all that much about Philippus Ningtumwa of Namibia, 27 years old, um, with just a single loss on his record, but all of his fights had taken place in Africa. So, with very little known opposition, yeah, he was 12-1 and 11 knockouts, but against what we didn't know. So this looked like a stay busy fight for Casemiro in front of his fans, but it turned out to be a much more competitive fight and a real action fight. Very fun to watch. Went all 12 rounds with Casemiro winning. Two scorecards were a bit wide in the end, 116 to 110, and then there was a knockdown early in the fight. I believe it was the sixth round. But one of the cards was 114 to 112. Part of the other reason for those wide scores, wider than normal, is that a point was taken away for low blows in the very last round against Ningtumwa. So two of those points gave the margin on that third card, and the others would have been razor close. And those cards really do reflect how competitive the fight was. The excitement was that after Casemiro scored the knockdown, it looked like that fight was going to be over. Ningtumwa was on extremely wobbly legs, but he got out of the round. He played it very conservatively in the following round, and by the seventh round, he was pounding away again. I mean, his powers of recovery were impressive. His nickname, his moniker is Energy, and he showed that he's got quite the gas tank. Yes, he lost, but I knew nothing about him before this fight. I would love to see him again. He put on a very spirited action fight. He's got some pop. He was not afraid to trade. He made Casemiro work for it damn hard. So a fight that was easy to forget in sort of a busy, big, messy boxing weekend, which would be a shame because it was a terrific little fight to watch.
And we'll see where he goes from here. Again,
And
as I
just add, Larry, thank you. Corrected me. That point taken away in the 12th round was for a rabbit punch, not a low blow. Yeah, Larry, if has clearly seen the fight. I did not think there was any way after that knockdown he was going to make it through the round. I mean, you've all heard the expression, pardon my language, about a fighter being on Queer Street. This was it. He was really staggering around. In fact, honestly, the referee could have stopped it at that point, and I don't think anyone would have thought twice about it. But his recuperative power is very, very impressive. His offensive output was excellent. He's obviously got some power. And I think that his problem is he's just lacked experience against decent opposition. Well, now he has a fight against, pretty solid guy. And I'd love to see what he's learned from this and what he offers next.
at the very least, the guy that Casemiro beat, he entertained, right? As you mentioned, he badly hurt, but he got up and he kept fighting until the very end. So he has staying power, right? And one would think he could learn from this kind of performance. And as far as Casemiro, look, when he had the belt at 118, talking big stuff about wanting a fight with Inoue, but moved up to 122 pounds in part because of a lack of discipline on his part. Had issues making the weight. Let's see if, say, Inoue beats Fulton in July. That talks could begin once again for a fight between Inoue and Casemiro. This time at 122 pounds. I go to you, Daniel, with the news. Here, one story that's really noteworthy, and that is the situation involving Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. The WBO had ordered that those two fighters negotiate a fight, gave a May 2nd deadline. That deadline has gone and passed because the two parties couldn't agree to a deal. Wrote about it on 3kingsboxing.com. Please check out 3Kings Boxing, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the entire 3KB crew, the head of 3Kings Boxing 2K, Bo, who you've heard on the show numerous times. He's a senior writer and head of media relations. Shout out to Bakari, fellow senior writer. I'm also a senior writer there, and also those who do work on the site, Red, and the contributors behind the scene. Anyway, Usyk and Dubois couldn't agree to a deal. News came out today, and I had actually reached out to WBA. Shout out to Gail for the email. I sent an email to them, and they confirmed that a May 25th purse bid will be held in Houston, Texas. What do you make, Daniel, of the fact that this bout has yet to be made? It was largely thought it would just be easy pickings, not easy pickings, but it would just be done with no hassle. But it seems like it's becoming more and more problematic to make this fight.
Well, we have to take into account that what Usyk has been dealing with. He's been dealing with the fact that he's wanted to negotiate with Tyson Fury, has wanted to fight Tyson Fury, but unfortunately, Tyson Fury has proven that he wants no parts of Alexander Usyk. So, unfortunately, this situation got stretched out to a point where when you're pivoting towards the next mandatory, which is Dubois, that you don't have a lot of time then to go into a situation because you're already focused on trying to get a big fight. Not to mention that there's still, like I said, this rumor mill of a super card for the heavyweights in December. What's interesting, though, in this case is the fact that Dubois is injured, apparently. And it could be a chance that even if they go forward with the purse bid, at least going to that date, that there's a legitimate chance that Dubois will not be ready at the mandated time for the WBO for that defense to be made. If that happens, then the WBO has the authority to go to the next man in the line. Who is that? One Mr. Bomb Squad, Deontay Wilder. So if there's a chance that Dubois hurt enough where he has to skip this fight, we will more than likely get Wilder versus Usyk. And we know Wilder, he's a crazy person when it comes to certain fights. He was willing to fight Tyson Fury twice more after what happened to him the first time. So if he's willing to do that, he's not gonna wait on an opportunity to try to reclaim a title, because as far as being outboxed, let's face it, for almost all of the fights that we've seen Deontay Wilder do, he's been outboxed in almost all of the fights. But he still has probably the most dangerous sleeper in the sport in that right hand. And if there's any chance that he lands on Usyk, we don't know what can happen. But that to me is going to be interesting to see how the Dubois team is going to handle, because there's a lot of rumors in the block, and there's rumors that he's leaving Shane McGuigan as a trainer. I said there's the injury rumors, and then there could be also the fact that if it goes like this, the purse bid, and then not negotiated, the split is going to be 75-25 towards Usyk. So that may not be favorable to one Mr. Dubois. But it's going to be something we definitely going to keep an eye on. Like I said, to me, this is an end result of the fact that Usyk has been wanting one fight, waiting for that one fight. Unfortunately, that fight for him is not materializing, and likely never will materialize. But now he's faced with either mandatory or a very interesting fight that will pay-per-view in the United States if it winds up being Deontay Wilder instead of Daniel Dubois.
And we will continue to monitor the situation and keep you updated here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Let's move on to some fights here, and because a lot of action happening this weekend and really into next weekend. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. I'm going to split these fights up. Double header that's taking place in Ireland, Gail. Two significant bouts when it comes to women's boxing. The co-main is Terri Harper, right? Who's moved up from 130 to 154 pounds. In her last bout, she won the junior middleweight title WBA version. She makes the first title defense against former long-reigning undisputed champion at 147 pounds, Cecilia Braekhus. A lot of people remember Braekhus for her back-to-back losses to Jessica McCaskill, right? Even though Harper has fought most of her career at 130 pounds, right? She moved up to 154. The younger champion is viewed as the favorite, and a lot of people feel that Braekhus, 41, is past her prime. Do you think that Braekhus at this stage of her career, she's only had one fight since that second fight to Braekhus, what took place in I think early 2021. Do you think that she has anything left at this stage of her career? Can she drink from the fountain of youth and return it anyway to the form of her younger years and pull off what a lot of people consider an upset against a Harper who feels at this higher weight, 154 pounds, that she can beat anyone?
Well, it is a very big hill for the great Cecilia Braekhus to climb. there is absolutely no question about the quality of her career, um, the precedents that she set, the trails she blazed for a lot of these women who have looked up to her for years. But her loss to Alicia Baumgardner was pretty brutal. Terri Harper, and Braekhus's loss to Jessica McCaskill, in two back-to-back fights. Um, she didn't get beaten by McCaskill as badly as Harper got beaten by Baumgardner, but both fights were pretty devastating, and both women have been climbing their way back. And fortunately for Harper, youth is on her side, which is a very different story than Braekhus. She is in the position of being able to learn from the losses, and rebuild with the physical tools to do it at age 26, which she is now. Braekhus, unfortunately, he was a very heavy, was a serious veteran, especially on the women's side of the sport. When you see a woman have more than 30 or 35 fights, that is a very, very busy career because the talent pool just simply isn't there. Well, Braekhus is 37-2 with those two losses, shockingly, right here at the end of her career. And she is now 41 years old. You need to train very smart, not simply hard. You have to accept what time does. And you have to tell you to yourself, you look in the mirror, not everybody is Bernard Hopkins. What can Braekhus do? She deserves the opportunity to try, given her legacy. She does. But as we will be talking about in our previews for the card here in the US, when you have an older, experienced champion and a young, on fire fighter with youth on their side, almost always in that matchup, youth prevails over experience. And I do think that will happen here. I applaud Harper for moving up in weight. That's what the women have to do again. Once they get through the top opposition in their own natural division, they tend to run out of good opponents pretty quickly. So Harper did the right thing moving up. It seems to suit her. She likes it. She had a absolute shutout on the cards in her first go around at super welterweight, which was actually on a card in Commerce, California, at the very end of last year, on one of the 360 promotions cards. So if somebody said to me, bet your next paycheck on this fight, with the ability to buy groceries or not, I would love to see Braekhus get that one last win and retire, but I think Terri Harper will pull it out.
Excuse me, I was on mute. I mentioned how this is the co-main. The main event of this card in Ireland is, uh, simply put, Daniel, one of the best matchups of the year, right? A rarity in the sport. Two undisputed champions are fighting one another, as Katie Taylor, undisputed at 135 pounds, is moving up to fight women's undisputed 140-pound champion, Chantelle Cameron. Of course, this May date in Ireland was supposed to be the rematch between Taylor and another undisputed champion, Amanda Serrano. It was supposed to be a rematch between those two ladies, but Serrano had to withdraw due to a hand injury. Serrano is going to return to the ring in August. Um, yeah, she's going to return to the ring in August, but um, the fight with Cameron is a heck of a substitute bout, right? Cameron beat McCaskill. McCaskill moving down to 140 pounds, beat McCaskill to become undisputed champion at that weight, right? Um, when when um, when the rematch fell through between Serrano and Taylor, Cameron stepped up and says, if Serrano is unable to fight, I'm willing to step in. Um, Taylor said, "Let's do it," and the fight is here. Um, on paper, shapes up to be a heck of a bout. Cameron is in her prime. Taylor, one of the best women to ever lace on a pair of gloves. I would make the argument that Katie Taylor is the number one pound for pound women's fighter in the world. Her resume, her accomplishments cannot be questioned. They are stellar. Yeah, it should be in Taylor for the first time is fighting in her home country of Ireland. Um, it should be a heck of a night in Dublin this coming weekend, this coming Saturday night or Saturday afternoon at U.S. time.
Yeah, luckily this is a situation where the substitution is almost as enticing as the original fight because obviously that rematch with Amanda was huge. It was stamp your calendar type of fight. But unfortunately, when she did have to pull out, it did put a lot of it in danger because it's one of the things when fighters want to have homecoming fights, they always want to have showcases. But unfortunately for the women, there isn't a lot to go as far as showcases go, especially in homecomings. But Chantelle Cameron gave her a gift saying, I'm willing to fight you. And considering the little bit of actual political environment right now happening in the United Kingdom as it pertains to Northern Ireland, it's gonna be very interesting how that crowd is gonna react to Chantal Cameron, the Brit, going into that arena to face obviously the hometown girl and Katie Taylor. But this is gonna be a fun fight because Taylor, as unfortunately as has gone along, and they got shown in various fights with Pursoon. Obviously, the fight with Amanda, which I still say she lost, is what shows it in that she's getting to that point where it's no longer she's invincible or her activity can't overwhelm anymore. And she may be right for the picking for somebody like Chantal Cameron because Chantal Cameron is more comfortable at the weight. She's younger. She knows what this fight would do for her legacy. So that is definitely going to be a very fun, entertaining fight to see because whatever whoever wins is probably going to get that match with Amanda next, as long as Amanda beats Heather Hardy. Well, because as much as Taylor and Amanda too make sense, if Chantal Cameron beats Taylor and it beats her decisively, oh yeah, no, I want to see Amanda versus Chantal Cameron at that point.
Agreed. Or depending on how the fight go, uh, how competitive the match is, um, particularly if Cameron were to win, I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch between the two ladies. This fight is one I'm particularly looking forward to. I'm pumped up about it. Can't wait for it to happen again. One of the best matchups uh, that could be made. Shout out to all parties involved. Shout out to Cameron for stepping up and said she'll fight Taylor. Shout out to Taylor for insisting that the fight happen. And shout out to Matchroom and Eddie Hearn for doing what they had to do to make the deal. So yeah, terrific fight, terrific night. I just can't wait for the atmosphere, particularly the ring walk of Katie Taylor fighting at home for the first time. That should be something special indeed. Let's move on from that fight, from those two fights in Las Vegas, and let's go to back to Las Vegas, Gail. And dare I say, this is an old school card we're talking about here on the 20th um, at MGM Grand. The headline, of course, is the anticipated fight between um, Haney and Lomachenko. Haney defending the undisputed lightweight titles. But let's go from undercard to main event, and let's start with uh lightweight bout between Muratalla and 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 Jeremiah Nakathila, right? Nakathila, the South African. A lot of fights remember him for stopping Burchelt last time out, and then stopping the Burchelt in brutal fashion, beat up and pounded Burchelt throughout that contest. I believe it was stopped in the sixth round. Nakathila, South Africa, makes his return to the ring again against this guy by the name of Muratalla. There could be some big things in store for Nakathila should he win. But yeah, your thoughts on this upcoming fight?
We've got a terrific main event, but we have a very good undercard here. And that is not always the case on a pay-per-view. Fans get surly when the undercards, are lacking, less than thrilling. Bob Arum has said in the past, nobody pays for an undercard. Nobody cares about an undercard. Well, some of us do care about an undercard. And Bob, despite his comments in the past, there's a pretty damn good undercard here. Now, Muratalla is a Southern California-based fighter, one of the many talents out of the Inland Empire. He's out of Fontana, California. He's undefeated, 17-0, 14 knockouts. He has always, in every step-up fight, he's passed the test so far, one after another. He had a very good knockout win in his last fight in March. Not a whole lot of wear and tear on him. So he's going to get his shot here against somebody far more experienced than most of his opponents have been. And once again, Top Ranks matchmakers are willing to match guys tough. They don't want to waste a whole lot more time and effort on these guys if they're only going to get to a certain point of their careers. They tend to put some of these guys right into the fire, at this point of their careers to see, have they got what it takes and could we fully get behind them? Muratalla is 26 years old, offense-minded fighter, very typical Mexican-American, all-action guy with some pop. He's going to come up against one of these typically tough African fighters, just like Casimiro's opponent. Nakathila's from Namibia, and his only losses have been to Shakur Stevenson. No shame in that game. He went the distance, but he did get knocked down in the fight, and the cards were a complete shutout, 120-107, all across the board in that fight. And his other loss was much, much earlier in his career, a fight he had in Russia 7 years ago, a majority decision loss. So hardly a blowout. We'll see what Nakathila's got to offer. He won this opportunity because of the defeat of Miguel Burchelt in 6 rounds. Burchelt actually retired after the 6th round. And, this is not the guns blazing, power punching version of Burchelt. Burchelt has had a very rough time ever since he got the pulp beaten out of him by Oscar Valdez. So, what does that victory really mean in Nakathila's resume? Well, we're going to get a chance to find out. I mean, it is absolutely the perfect matchmaking. Tough, veteran, knows how to handle himself versus a guy that seems to pass the eye test in Muratalla, has a great Southern California fan base. There's a lot that can be done with him. At lightweight, that is a division that Top Rank like to do a lot of business in. So good matchup, good fight. I think that no matter who wins this fight, it will be fun to watch.
I mentioned that I said that Nakathila some South African, when in actuality he is from Namibia. You're right on that, Gil. In the discussion, you mentioned Oscar Valdez. Daniel, he's also fighting on this card. Um, Valdez, former champion at 126 and 130 pounds. Um, Fighting for the first time, I think, since the loss to Shakur Stevenson last year. Returned to the ring against a Adam Lopez, who's a decent boxer, right? For Valdez, was at stake for him is a fight against Emmanuel Navarrete, who recently won the WBO belt at 130 pounds. Uh, I mean, not Navarrete, excuse me. Valdez is viewed as the favorite, but am I wrong here in thinking that Adam Lopez, with his boxing skills, with his length, um, if he's on his game and if he's motivated, he could give Valdez some problems here, particularly in the early rounds.
This fight is gonna show where exactly Oscar Valdez really is as far as his career goes, because we have to remember early on in his career, tough power puncher, likes to take people out, but he never really expanded beyond that style. And even moving like to the Reynoso camp and trying to get more acclimated when they came to the defense, it never really clicked in many ways. That's why some of the last fights have been lackluster, and he had to resort to trying to make it into his old fight. The fight with Shakur is like a perfect example. So for Lopez, this is a very good
And
opportunity
let
to
me chime
see.
in, Daniel. Excuse me. This is indeed a rematch. They did fight at 26 pounds. They did fight I think it was at 126 pounds. With Valdez defending the belts, defeating Lopez. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm. I believe so. I forgot what year it was, but I believe so. But
It was
like I said, this is an opportunity.
I will jump in. It was right before the pandemic. It was
Oh yeah.
February 2019. Um, and um, Valdez missed weight. So there was that. And he did score a seventh round TKO win over Lopez. However, Lopez knocked Valdez down in the second round, and the cards were split at the time of the stoppage. There was a 57-56 card for Lopez, another 57-56 card for Valdez, and Dave Moretti had it 58-55 for Valdez at the time of the stoppage. So it would have been a split decision had they gone to the cards at that point. Razor thin for Valdez, but it was a very close fight. Um, and we have spoken to the matchmaker here who put this rematch together, knowing that some people might not be too thrilled with it. I'm not mad at it. This was a close fight the first time, despite going on BoxRec. You see, Valdez scored a seventh round TKO. Well, it was a lot closer than you might have thought, and both of them need to look good in this fight.
And let's not forget, you mentioned that fight. I remember that now. Almost 4 years ago, and Valdez has had more wear and tear since then. So, like I said, if this is fight to make yourself known for Adam Lopez, this should be the time to do it, because Valdez, unfortunately, like I mentioned, tries to go back to his old ways of just trying to rock him, sock him his way to winning. And if it's somebody that knows they can knock you down, which Lopez does, and somebody that make it rougher for you if he wanted to, like Lopez can, it might be a long night for Valdez. And that's going to be interesting to see, because if Lopez wins, he goes from beating an Oscar Valdez that can be seen as shot born to a Navarrete who is getting close to that area from his recent fights.
Well, and Lopez has got 4 losses on his record. So this is a do or die fight for him. He's going to be highly motivated.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see if he can. I was gonna say make any improvements, but the fight. Uh, Yeah, let's put it that way. Let's see if he can continue the moment, get the early lead like he did in the first fight, and continue them and build on that, right? If he does that and doesn't get caught like he did in that first fight, he could make it very, very interesting, because the thing about Valdez is that defensively he has some holes, and he's shown throughout his career he's a guy who can be hit. And given that backdrop, given that context, things could get interesting. Another fight on this card, um, another fight on this card, Gail. Interesting battle for the vacant WBO title at 115 pounds. We earlier um, talked about Jason Moloney winning the bantamweight title. Well, his twin brother, Andrew Moloney, is going to fight former WBO flyweight champion Junto Nakatani for that vacant WBO belt at 115 pounds. Right? We remember Moloney from his trilogy with Joshua Franco. Um, he's fighting a Nakatani who, one of the best fighters in the low weight division, who doesn't get that much pub. But Nakatani Gale is a guy who's really hungered to make a name for himself in the United States. He's been training on and off here in the U.S. since he was, what, 15. He's appeared, if you're a hardcore head, you know he's appeared at numerous fights. I remember him posting a selfie. I think it was at Bam Rodriguez fight against Srisakot last summer. Um, so he wants the opportunity. He wants the spotlight that comes with fighting in the United States. Very, very tall, talented southpaw. He feels that he can compete with anybody from 112 to 118 pounds. Moloney is the older guy. I would make Nakatani the favorite in my opinion, but Moloney can give him a very, very good fight. It can be argued that if not for the main event, this fight between Nakatani and Moloney could be the most interesting fight on this entire card.
Well, it has the potential. They are both offense-minded fighters. They're both very hungry for this. You're right. Junto Nakatani, for being 24-0 with 18 knockouts in the super flyweight division, which has really enjoyed some visibility the last couple of years. Man, he is a no-name to a lot of American fans, which is a shame. Most of his fights have been in Japan. This is only going to be his second fight in the United States. In his first fight, he dispatched Angel Acosta with ease. That was at 112 pounds. So now he's going up to fight at super flyweight. This will only be his second fight. He had what I would consider sort of a test / tune-up fight late last year in Japan against veteran Francisco Rodriguez. Not a problem. Went the distance, but was never in danger. So now he's got that under his belt. He and Moloney are going to stare each other down. They both want it. Moloney does have the 2 losses, but they're both those razor thin losses to Joshua Franco. Sometimes a guy just has your number. A guy is just your kryptonite. And after 3 fights, all really competitive, all really fun fights, Moloney just could not get a win against Franco. So smart of him to move on. Well, he hopes it's a really good week in the Moloney household. First his brother won, and he was ringside for that fight. But now it's his turn. The one thing about the Moloneys is they give everything they've got, but he's got to watch out for the sneaky power of Nakatani, and he is a southpaw. So he's going to have some of the same problems his brother did. This one's a very tough one to call. You do have to look at Nakatani's record, but he has fought primarily in Japan. Not all of his 24 wins have been against big names or world beaters. In fact, most of them haven't. So part of what we're going to be looking at is, how does this record reflect the eye test that we're going to see? But you know what? Super flyweight fights at this level, you know, it is really hard for them to suck. They just they don't. They're generally very good, enjoyable fights. We have a lot of prospects I want to mention just quickly on this undercard again. You know, for all the griping about undercards, either A, really being bad on pay-per-views, or B, not being that important. Nobody buys the card for the undercards. There are some of the more interesting prospect names on this card. Floyd Diaz, Floyd Cashflow Diaz, protege of Floyd Mayweather, is on the card. Abdullah Mason, a lightweight that a lot of us have our eye on, is on the card. Talented young middleweight Amari Jones on this card. Emiliano Vargas, one of the three fighting kids of Fernando Vargas, pardon me, and he is by far the best of the three. And there's this middleweight on the card, Nico Ali Walsh. And I've heard rumors about him being related to someone famous in boxing. He's on this card.
Duly noted in terms of all the prospects who's going to be fighting on that card as well. Let's get to the main event. The fight of the weekend is one of the fights of the year. We're going to get both of you into this discussion here to give your analysis, and that is, of course, Devin Haney defending the undisputed lightweight belts against three division champion, former unified lightweight champion, former number one on the pound for pound rankings, Vasyl Lomachenko. I go to you, Daniel, to start off. Two highly skilled boxers, right? Loma has been lauded for his unique style and the fact that he has a way at times of making fighters wilt, not from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, right? He's one of these guys who will have his opponent so flustered and so frustrated that they kind of give up and cave in. He intimidates a lot of opponents in that way. But in his last fight against Jermaine Ortiz, he didn't look like the usual Loma. Now that last performance should be put in a certain context because we all know the situation in his country of Ukraine, ongoing war against Russia. He went back, Lomachenko, to be with his countrymen, and as a result, he came into that fight against Ortiz off of a lengthy layoff. People are using that fight to say that Loma is slipped, and he's fighting a Haney that seems to be improving with each fight. Haney won the unified undisputed belts by defeating Kambosos in Kambosos' home country of Australia. June of last year, they had a rematch in October. Haney was even more dominant in the rematch. And the thing about Haney is big guy for a lightweight, may not be the puncher that of a Gervonta Tank Davis, but he is a terrific all-around fighter. He can box. He has inside fighting skills, hand speed, a lot of maneuverability, good defense, and in my opinion, he's an elite fighter. The question is, what Lomachenko are we going to see? If it's the Lomachenko that we've known prior to the Ortiz bout, he's more than capable of defeating Haney. But if it's the fighter who's seemingly on the decline, Haney has not only has the advantage, I will predict that he will win. Fascinating matchup, and it's kind of an unknown quantity here in terms of how the fight will go because we just don't know about Lomachenko. Was that fight against Ortiz just a one night? Just sum that up as him being off for one night, or or is Lomachenko a fighter who is getting up there in age and not the fighter that he once was?
Well, you have to take into the account also the injury that he came with, shoulder injury. But this to me is a very interesting fight because this was a fight that to me was never really going to happen because of WBC shenanigans that happened prior to Loma's fight against Teofimo Lopez. We have to remember, we all thought that Loma was going to beat Teo. And probably figured that then he would probably try to get a rematch, try to get a match with Haney to fix the mess that the WBC made when it came to the 135-pound belt. Sorry. But obviously, that didn't happen. He lost to Theo Lopez. Lopez then lost to Kambosos, which allowed Haney to get all the belts to become undisputed. This is an interesting fight because this is a tactician versus a tactician in many ways. They're very different in the way they're tacticians, but neither one of them are blitz power punchers, rock and sock'em style. Obviously, with Lomachenko, yes, X still has excellent footwork. He still has excellent accuracy. And when it comes to Haney, his bread and butter is the jab. His jab can control the distance. His jab can control your pace and lets him set up combinations so he can win rounds. Loma, for the most part, has been pretty matched up against people that were more or less punchers in reality, that didn't rely on the jab as much as Haney does. In fact, he got asked that question actually today when they did the fighter rivals today. He got asked about Haney's jab. And Loma kind of brushed it off, saying, I've seen it before. It's the same thing as Ryan Garcia's left hook. You just got to look out for it. What's interesting also when it comes to both of these fights is that both these guys have shown at different times that they can be vulnerable. Interestingly enough, they both showed it against the same guy, Jorge Linares. Obviously, we know Linares knocked down Lomachenko in their fight. And he came very, very close, probably seconds away from beating him in the 11th round of their fight. So both these guys have shown vulnerabilities. The difference to me is going to be who can set the pace early. If Lomachenko can set the pace early with his footwork and with his punch variations, he may be able to negate the jab, the power jab that Haney's going to keep throwing at it. If Haney's able to keep Lomachenko away, control him from a distance with that jab, Haney will win out. I have a feeling that old man Lomachenko is probably going to be the one to pull this out. He is motivated to become undisputed in the weight division. He knows how close he came to being undisputed against Lopez. And injury pretty much derailed that chance. But now he has a second one. And obviously that sets up a match the Top Rank has pretty much wanted to be the end game when it came to this weight class, which is him versus Shakur, which would be a very interesting fight as well. Which either guy wins, they're going to have to face Shakur. And that's going to be an interesting fight for either one of them. But I think the old man has a couple of tricks up his sleeve.
Sorry. What say you, Gail?
This is not going to be a barn burner, action-packed fight. This is not going to be all offense. This is going to be a very tactical fight, a very subtle fight, a chess game of a fight. And both these guys have to stay disciplined and do what they do best. It is the classic crossroads, the passing of the torch kind of fight, except with the senior fighters still very much being dangerous in Lomachenko. He seems motivated. Haney seems motivated. I don't think we can question the drive of either of these gentlemen. Lomachenko's a lock for the Hall of Fame. Haney is all but there. So it's a very meaningful fight at this stage of both their careers for different reasons. Over and over, however, we've generally seen youth prevail. And I do think as long as Haney sticks to the game plan, doesn't worry about criticism that he's not a power puncher, which he really hates that, the whole pillow hands thing, he hates that. But that is not where his skills are, that's not where his game is built. He is a brilliant tactical fighter. The jab can mess you up just as badly, picking away at you piece after piece after piece. He's learned a lot as he's come up in his fights. I do think he's going to win the Shakur sweepstakes. Lomachenko's career, his record as an amateur is just unquestionable, unassailable. That is not going to change with a loss this weekend. He does have a chance. He absolutely does have a chance to win. He's dangerous. He's smart. He won't make mistakes. If anyone's going to lose focus, it's possibly Haney, but he has shown himself to be so disciplined, and that's what really impresses me about him, especially at such a young age. And as much as I'd love to see Lomachenko go out on a high with the win, I really don't want to see him being fed to Shakur. I'm more interested in seeing the two young guys get it on in a lot of ways. And I really do think Haney will pull this out. Haney has had doubters all the way along. Every time he has stepped up, critics have said, well, he's probably reached the threshold of his skills. And he's proven them wrong every single time. And I think he will again Saturday.
Daniel, you're going with Lomachenko, and what many will view it as an upset at this point. Gail, you're going with the defending champ. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Haney here. Assuming that there are no issues with him getting down to 135 pounds one more time, we know that Haney's, as I said, he's a big guy. And in his last couple of fights, he looked pretty weight drained during weigh-ins, but he's young and he has time to recover, and his body can replenish him. He can replenish himself and be back in shape on fight night. I think that's going to be the case again. He may look weak and emaciated at the weigh-in, but he'll recover in time for fight night. And I think the size of Haney, the speed of Haney, and the hunger of Devin Haney will be the difference in this one. Lomachenko will have his spots. He will land his share of punches, but a guy who can give Lomachenko some movement and some angles can give him problems. And Haney has the style that can trouble Lomachenko. And I think because he's younger, I think he will be there for the long haul. In the end, excuse me for the background noise here. My apologies for that. Let me do some things here. Yeah, my apologies for that. And I'm going with Haney to win this fight by decision. I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I don't think you're going to see a fighter get significantly hurt here. But in the end, I have Haney walking away with all four belts wrapped around his waist. I'm going to go to the panel here. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat with their comments. Shout out to Olaf. Shout out to Larry Liston for their comments. And again, appreciate you having on. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please spread the word. Like, subscribe, share. I'm going to go around the panel here. Begin with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, for those who want to check you out. The new member of the Boxing Writers Association, I might add. Uh, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, for those who want to talk, who want to check you out, excuse me, occasionally on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can find you.
nyfights.com is my home, nyfights.com, and I am on boxing Twitter. Yep, I'm still there. Elon Musk can't scare me away. You're welcome to chat it up with me there. And yep, I am an official member of the Boxing Writers Association of America, BWAA, and it's now on their website, so they can't take it back.
I'll go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk uh, boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. Game there in the Eastern Conference Finals. Game one against Boston will be tomorrow night. We're recording this show live on May 16th. May 16th. They play game one of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals tomorrow against the Seas, the Celtics. For those who want to talk boxing, pro wrestling, Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Same thing. Elon hasn't burned Twitter down yet, so you can catch me on Twitter, Rawkers99, RAWKZ99. And I'll say this: I thank you, Warner Bros. Discovery. Thank you, TNT, for picking up the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA. So we don't have to worry about stuff like doesn't have to worry about any scheduling conflicts for the next 2 weeks. If the series goes 7, we're either going to see the Miami Heat or the Florida Panthers on the TV. It's going to be fun.
Indeed. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with yours, you know what? Hit me up on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance, you can do so on IG and TikTok, Brother JR SC. On the next episode, we will do a recap of what is a loaded. May 20th, we will do a recap of Haney and Lomachenko, of Oscar Valdez, Adam Lopez, of Muratalla, Nakathila, and also Junto, Nakatani, and Andrew Moloney. We'll also recap Chantelle Cameron, her bout with Katie Taylor, Terri Harper, and her bout with Cecilia Braekhus, and we will do a preview of what is another weekend, loaded weekend on the weekend of May 27th. And I don't know why they decided to do this, but they have multiple fight cards and world title fights that will happen in and around at the same time. So you're going to have to do a delicate dance here, boxing fans, when it comes to what you're going to watch, because again, these fights are going to happen in and around at the same time over in the UK on the 27th. In Belfast, Northern Ireland, Luis Alberto Lopez is going to make the first defense of the IBF featherweight title against Michael Conlan. Also on the 27th, again, he's going to be in and around the same time. Mauricio Lara fighting the rematch against Lee Wood. Lara defending the WBA belt that he took from Wood last September. They're fighting a rematch. Also on the 27th, Lopez Conlan, that's going to be in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Lara and Wood is going to happen in Manchester, England on the zone. The Lopez Conlan fight will happen on ESPN Plus. Also in England, you're going to have Lawrence Okoli defending his WBO cruiserweight title against Chris Billum Smith. So yeah, all of those fights are going to happen late afternoon on the 27th. So again, good luck to you in terms of trying to catch all those fights at the same time. But we will do a preview of those 3 fights here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Again, I want to thank everybody who checked us out in the live chat. For Gail of NY Fights and the Boxing Writers Association of America, for Daniel of the Inscriber, and for Boxing News, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 404 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good one. Good night. So let me get off of here because we have a thunderstorm that's getting ready to roll through here. Episode 404 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. Y'all have a good one.